What if your story could ignite a movement? At New Solutions Network, we merge truth, resilience, and reinvention, fueling shows that cut past the noise and light up what really matters: human potential. Police, athletes, survivors, incarcerated folks, visionaries, we bring raw, real voices the world needs to hear. Want to share your story? Want to sponsor change? Now is the time. New Solutions Network, unlocking the future, one voice at a time. Hi there, and welcome to the Natanya Experience. My guest today is the founder of Cultivating Wisdom, among other things, also a former CNN producer, Cesar, although for the non-Latin folks, we might call him Cesar today. Cesar Marin, he spent more than 2 decades inside one of the most powerful machines in American media. So, producer at CNN, sports, Spanish language news, right? The kind of work that runs a lot on adrenaline and deadlines. And the face that you put on at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, whether you meant it or not. So that whole time, right, you were carrying a part of yourself that maybe he couldn't fully say or be with out loud. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
This other self, this hidden self that many of us, especially of a certain age, who've gone through a few generations and life stages with culture shifting, right? So maybe this would raise an eyebrow for some young people today. But having a private relationship with cannabis of all things, but in the newsroom in that era, that was the kind of thing you didn't have on the record, I think. Right. So you were a man who told stories for a living, but you were quietly editing your own. And then the layoffs came. So, right. So the career that defined you just sort of was like, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were in your early 50s, right? It's a time when many people say like, wow, is this like thinking about the last chapters, right? So I think you took a path that maybe no one at the network, or maybe you can tell us if anyone at the network saw coming where you went. But with purpose and intention, you took a big turn after that and rebuilt your life from the inside out. And, have done some pretty incredible things, shouting from the rooftops at South by Southwest and all the places that they let you from, what you're building in Colombia, and, really maybe helping somebody here today talk about what the cost of performance was, right? And what the freedom or what the exchange was for telling the truth about the way you want to live your life.
Yeah.
So with that, welcome, Cesar.
Wow. First of all, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. There's so much. There was so much in there. There's so much in there that I need to start to unpack, and I'm going to start here. First of all, thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing me because we're all we all live in these worlds where we expect so much of each other, of ourselves, right? And we ask ourselves, why am I not up here? Like, why am I not up here? And you putting into context like what I've been through in the last 3 years alone, and me sitting here, like, wow, thank you so much, thank you so much for opening the doors of this wonderful podcast for me to share my story. Thank you again for seeing who I am, understanding what the mission is. There's so much. I mean, so much has changed. It's gonna be 3.5 years since I walked out of the doors of CNN, and like you said, it was 25 years of contempt. It was 25 years of, yes, I'm at the, holy cow, I'm at CNN. Where else do I go? It was 25 years of comfortness, and it wasn't until the discomfort came that things shifted. But fortunately for me, plant medicine came into my life at that moment. It's just ironic sometimes how the universe, God, Allah, Buddha, Mother Nature, whoever you believe in, how things happen, right? How at a pinnacle moment in my life, something, that the earth has given us says, hey, come here, wait a minute. We have something completely different for you. Like, you're going to be a thought leader. And like you said, you're going to speak at South by Southwest, and you're going to find this niche of men who need and deserve a different lifestyle. And it's been just this incredibly magical shift. And like you said, I literally went, and I've never heard it that when it was so beautifully put. Like, holy cow!
Well, scientists playing media person.
I went from 25 years of telling other people's stories while I was editing my own, which was like, holy cow! she's so right. And there was so much to unpack in there between, the children, the divorce, the layoff, the addiction to a substance, the infidelities, the turmoils, the all the things that come with life, to now being in this like most peaceful moment of reality, of true reality, of knowing and realizing that the only moment I have is right now. The past is the past. The future is so far away that if I don't concentrate on what I'm doing at this moment, life is fleeting. And for a really long time I lived in that, the past or the future, or not really understanding. And I talked about it in an article in Double Blind, where it's, I've always loved my kids, but I didn't really see them
Yeah.
until now. I've loved things in life, but now I see them, right? My partner Isabel, it's like I
Yeah.
love her, but I see her
In it.
more than
In
what I
it.
love her, and that's a big change.
Yeah. So can I pause you there for a second? So, from when I was a journalist, when I'm studying behavioral science, even in marketing or customer behavior, wherever it was, I'm, kind of watching, right? So noticing quite a bit in terms of a pattern, if you will. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's causal or corollary for the science nerds listening, but just that a lot of the folks who are seemingly the best at controlling the narrative of their life are actually the most trapped in their own, right? So before the mushrooms, you started to give a little nod just now to the Cesar you were, where you were like, frame us up. Who was Cesar performing for the circus, if you will, of the
I
CNN,
was. I was.
especially, and not just the colleagues there, but within your family. I almost said familia.
Everything around me.
In your family. Nah, see the Spanglish, because we were doing it before. But you know, because I think what's important to honor too is like the depth and breadth of that chasm, where for when that schism starts to get
Mm.
wiggling. Before, there's always that time, some people it's a chapter of their life, some people it's 40 years, 50 years, some people it's different, but you had a 20-year time where you made it, you were on top. So what's the problem?
Well,
No, I
what
mean, I'm
was.
being silly, but when you know what I mean,
No, no,
like
no. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Was I on top? Right? What does on top mean? Right? And then it's sort of, there was you preluded the question with this sense of, we're trapped inside this bubble, right? And case in point, the other day I'm driving down the road, and in front of me is this Ferrari, not a red Ferrari, this white Ferrari. And I thought, you don't understand. Like, it was like everything was reflecting off of it. And as I drive up next to it, it's a gentleman about my age. You know what I mean? A dad, and next to him is his daughter, and his daughter's like this on her phone, and he's like this. Stoplight, what does he do? Pulls out his phone. You know what I mean? Next stoplight, the same thing. Three stoplights, the same thing. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. This guy has everything, right? I mean, think about it. If that's his car, think about his house. Think about the watch he has. Think about his shoe collection. So he's got everything, right? No. At that moment in time, the most important thing that he needed, which was the attention of his daughter, he doesn't have. So that's where I lived, right? I lived in that sense of not being in the present. I lived in the sense of escaping through cannabis, right? Using cannabis as an escapism tool, not with intentions. Escaping at work because it was like, it was easy. There was no, and I had also plateaued myself. I had plateaued myself because I'd become a really good sports producer at CNN, which 90% of it is news. Who's going to hire a sports producer to work for news, right? So I had really pigeoned myself, but in a good way, because I was doing sports. You know what I mean? Hello, but deep inside, was I thriving? Was that the best me? Was that the best version that I could show my kids? Right? Of just, I'm going to contemplate. I'm just going to relax. I'm going to go on the hamster wheel, and I'm going to be fine until when? Until I'm 65, and then they'll roll me down the stairs and thank you for your service. That's not how life works. Life is reality. I became a number on a spreadsheet, and something happened that I had no control over. Or did I? I took control of it, and then things changed. Right. So that's the thing. Sometimes we get comfortable as humans. We get comfortable in that bubble, and we continue to program ourselves. And again, in that default mode network. And then somehow plant medicine, psychedelics, whatever you want to call the drugs, come in, And as they open up that consciousness, and you're like, whoa, wait, well, hold on a second. Wait, wait. I have everything I need. When you realize that, life completely changes. Completely changes.
Would would you say that you felt very aware of that sort of inner lying to yourself situation early on, or was it something that built up over time as other things were like losing their luster, for lack of a better word? You know what I mean? Like, was it just building up for year over year, or did it sort of, was there a time when you felt like there was sort of more of an epiphany? Maybe something happened in your personal life or other ways, and you're like, I'm not really getting out of this what I thought, but I just have to keep going. And what kept you going through the motions of like the show, if you will?
It was easy. I was making CNN money for being there 25 years. I had insurance. I worked in sports.
Why would you
I
bite the
got
hand that feeds you?
Well, exactly. I got comfortable. I got complacent, and I got complacent in everything in life. Hey, you're in a relationship that's not really. There's more negative than positive. Okay, yeah, but let's sort of settle whatever, whether it's for the kids, whether it's for whatever it is. It became that. I think the cannabis helped in the escapism. Right? It helped me escape my reality, right? Um, but it was a fake reality. It wasn't reality. Like reality was reality, right? When I was able to sort of come to terms with the truth of myself, of who I am, of what my potential is, of what my potential is. Hey, you're not just a storyteller. Tell your story to maybe change somebody. That's your potential. I didn't see that before because I was complacent, because I was comfortable.
It's
Like
funny,
you said, why am I going to feed? Why am I going to bite the hand that feeds me?
right? And then like, so there's this giant big schema, right? So that world, the CNN world, the marital situation you were in, the things within family, the role that you were playing, right? It was built on a lot of sort of certainty, things that people could relate to, breaking news, kind of mainstream, not a lot of stigma. I mean, now maybe a days you have a little stigma on what news outlet it actually is, but
Yeah.
I think for a long time it was pretty much bipartisan, accepted as across the board. You could be like, I work with CNN. Oh my God, that's so cool, right? Authoritarian voice, a fixed frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Psychedelics, on the other hand, they do the opposite of that kind of construct. They dissolve.
Mm,
So you're a man essentially trained your whole life to be this certain agent. Cannabis takes the edge off of I don't really like the ride, but I don't really want to get off.
yep.
And then psychedelics to basically blow it up and reconfigure the whole thing, right? So
Yeah.
do you think a part of you had to really be rewritten, or some people say die, ego death, or like,
Of
do you feel
course.
like you're still the you that was that guy, or how does that work today when
Hmm.
like who
That's a great. That's a great question. That's a great question, and
well,
I'm gonna
maybe
be
I have that thought for myself because I'm also like,
and I'm
well,
gonna be
even if you
and I'm
do
gonna be
die,
and I'm
you
gonna
get a
be as
new
honest as
horoscope, you get a
possible.
new birthday. That's what we're talking about in the NDA chat. So
Yeah, yeah. It's So obviously for me, there was the catalyst was that the catalyst was the first mushroom experience. That was the turning point. That the first true um, awakening, I would say, right? And through that, a lot of things changed. Like a lot of things changed, and it came right. I mean, think about this. My first experience was November, October of 2022. The news comes out December that we're getting laid off. By then, things had already opened up, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I want to have conversations about psychedelics and about plant medicine. Let me start an apparel brand, right? So it was almost like when the news of the layoff came, I was ready for it. I was like, let's go. It was almost like I was going to be disappointed if I didn't get laid off because I already had a plan. I already had awakened to the new plan before I was asleep. If
right.
the psychedelics, someone asked me, Cesar, what would have happened if you would have gotten laid off and psychedelics had not come into your life? And I was like, Man, I don't even want to think about that. Knowing the Cesar from before, knowing that Cesar Marin, no thank you. No thank you. He
So
was lost. He was escaping all the time. Now he's like
I was
awake.
gonna say, so like the classic things you would think about would be thinking that, the security and the job loss means more escapism, maybe more reckless kind of choices, maybe more, kind of seeing how far you can push that envelope for what the boundaries are, because it's either facing the uncertainty or the darkness or the fear or the whatever or the loss of that old life, and you were
Think
already
about it.
prepared to step into a new one.
Think about it. What identified me for pretty much all of my life, journalist, Cesar Marin, journalist, and for 25 years, Cesar Marin, CNN producer, 25 years, half, more than half of my adult life. I was 55 years old at the time. I was taken away at a second. Boom, no longer. It's not you anymore. What do you do then? A lot of people, because let's be honest, there's not a lot of people hiring 55-year-old sports producers. He's not the senior executive of programming. He's not the vice president of marketing. He doesn't know the boss of Warner Media or of Discovery. So what he's going to do? He's going to go to local news. What he's going to do? It's an open door for anyone in my situation, whether it was cannabis, whether it was alcohol, whether it was gambling, whatever it was. It's an open door, like you said, to like, I don't even want to think about it. Don't even want to think about it. Now, you had alluded to something before about, okay, you had this epiphany, this awakening, this, but you've been programmed all this time. Yeah, that stuff still comes up. The doubts still come up. Of
Yeah.
course they do. But now I don't sit with them as long as I used
And it
to.
hasn't been as, and we've been talking since Wonderland of 24,
Yeah.
I think it was, right? And
24. Yeah.
talking about how this hasn't been a straight up path either. So it's not like you're
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I had a psychedelic journey right before I got laid off and I was already revealed with my perfect runway plan and business plan and, 6-year roadmap for what I'm going to do." No, it's gone like
No.
this, like this, like that. And if it's okay to say, you're a
Yeah.
proud Latino in a space that you've talked about it, still codes pretty Caucasian and tie dye. So
Very,
meaning like
very.
you you don't look like the average psychedelics ambassador, Cesar.
That's it. That's
No, but I
that's
mean, like,
that's the whole
you're
thing.
sort of a man on his own, and it's, again, there are advantages and disadvantages to being the only or one
Of
of the
course.
few, if you will. And so I think a couple things here are really interesting. All those culture codes, the Latin machismo culture code, the religious, these are bad drugs from Satan culture code, the this is what a parent is supposed to be okay with and in the public, code. This is what's legal in this country code. This is what is dangerous code. So like add boom, 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 like, so whether it's for your new relationships, your relationships with your children, your relationships with employers, your relationships with a potential investor, depending on what type of businesses you're going after now that you're being, an entrepreneur rather than W2, right? So all those boxes, and yet there's no guideposts because you're the first you coming on the scene.
Hmm. there's there's something, and I think
How
a
did you
lot of us.
navigate it? Sorry. So my question was like, can you tell us a little bit about navigating it?
Yeah, no, and look, that's there's you're there's a lot of ways to look at this, right? And I'm gonna first say my honesty, like my truth, my story, is gonna do a couple of things. I'm gonna talk to 5 people. Two of them are going to say hippie, stoner, druggy. What are you going to do next? Heroin? You're going to go get lost. You're going to jump off a building. Not for me. That's illegal. Never going to happen. Okay. I respect you. I respect your thoughts. Someone's going to say, what? Cesar, hold on a second. You're telling me that they're using psychedelics as medicine for therapy, for people with eating disorders, for depression, for anxiety? Hold on. I'm going to do a little bit more research. Thank you. Thank you for poking at my childhood curiosity. I'm going to do my own research and we'll go. But you're going to have that one person. that's going to be like, whoa, hold on a second. This is what's been calling me. Like this is what I need. This is what I deserve. And it's that one person that makes a difference, and that's why I do what I do. It doesn't to me. It doesn't matter whether you buck and I whether I wear a shirt that says microdoser, and someone says, "Oh wow, he's doing drugs," or someone says, "Oh dude, you microdose? I've heard about that. I've read about that. Does that really work? Can you sort of cultivate me with some wisdom?" So for
Nice,
me, the other thing,
nice
Natasha,
catch there
is
with the cultivate me with some wisdom.
you see, you gotta plug the brand. But that's what we do. I think that the more we do that, the more we awake, the more we spread much love, the more we're intentional with things. I think that that's as human beings, that's really important. And for me, it's I think that my story, my truth, if it changes one person's life, that's all. And it's a conversation that's really needed because, as you rightly know, and we talked about it earlier, the talk about psychedelics to the non-psychedelic to the psychedelic curious, they're on the seesaw. Or either it's this fear, oh my God, what happens? I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go crazy. No, look at Caesar. He hasn't lost his mind. Wait, he doesn't look like he's going to a Grateful Dead concert. Wait, he looks like he's an entrepreneur. Or the hype. You're going to do one microdose and your life's going to change. No, it's not. You're going to go to one ayahuasca series and that's you're like, no, you got to do the work afterwards. There's this conversation that needs to be had. And if I'm a pioneer, like you're a pioneer, there's a lot of us that are pioneers because no one was doing this 5, 10 years ago. But the science backs us. We have the science to
I
show
think
this isn't.
the science is finally figuring out how to structure itself around the things that were always known by some peoples. And now, because of the way we live in industrialized society, whether it's in the US or outside, we look to science as our scaffolding.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes too much, but you know, right? So it's a
But at least, yeah, but at least it opens up the conversation, right?
absolute.
Because at
That's
least it's
what
sort of, hey, there's this study that's going on that showed that people that have relationships with psychedelics are less triggered by facial expressions of chaos or fear. Oh wait, what do you? Hold on a second. So you're telling me there's science behind it? Oh yeah, maybe I might grow my own mushrooms. So it's sort of, I think that psychedelic curious person, something like that is reassuring. Then instead of, and it's, look, I always say I don't make recommendations. I just have conversations. And I'm going to share what the substances that I've sat with the intentions that I sat with them, what happened during the journey, and how I integrated whatever the experience was, whether it was a microdose, whether it was a museum dose because I was going to go out on the boat with my friends, whether it was a macrodose because I really wanted to go deep and figure out some things. I can share all those experiences. I'm not going to make recommendations. I'm not go do this because no.
yeah, I mean, I mean, we met each other in the conference circuit, right? We were
Correct. Yeah.
lasers, um, sober, talking about,
Yeah.
mechanism of action of compounds. But, I've heard you in other, situations, whether you're speaking or even in interviews, making a distinction around something that I've also felt. Again, some of this isn't as eye opening as it was maybe
hmm
5, 10 years ago, but it's
Yeah.
still important because for our generations, let's say Gen X and above, and maybe under these shifts of ways of thinking in mainstream society are still newer. They're still more difficult because there's more scaffolding behind us that we have
hmm
to look through. And so you had said something like executives flinch from the word healing, but they lean all the way in on optimization.
Optimization. Yeah.
So for me, how do we look at that not only as like a marketing trick, but like the full kahuna of what that is, right? The person inside their own defenses, right? And so when you're trying to reach someone, so I would imagine that people who have had a curiosity or just meet you because you're very, you're good hostage negotiator style. You're you're, you're very you disarm really well. And I think that's why people, get along with us around, right? So we're
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah. Exactly.
all kinds of people, however you want to approach, and you can almost sense that curiosity, right? The person who's just
hmm
you the question, you can almost feel it. Like, what do you want to ask? You want to ask me
Yeah.
what it's like? Do you want to ask what it's scary? Do you want to ask what happens in sex? Do you want to ask what happens in whatever? Right? Like, just put it out there, and they're like, yeah, yeah, I do want
Yeah. That's what I want to know.
to know. When you're now that you're kind of crafting these businesses. So you're doing advocacy work, you know what I'm saying? You have different parts of your business, but these retreats, how do you connect with the men that want to engage? Like, how do you actually communicate with them?
Mm,
Like, who are they? And where
yeah.
do you think is the bridge that you're bringing them across?
Mm. That's a great question, and thank you for picking up on, the because there's different ways you can use these molecules, medicines, therapies.
And you
Again,
chose
healing.
that.
Yeah, healing is a great part of it, right? Optimization, people have used it. Look at Steve Jobs. Look at Sam Altman, ChatGPT. The president of Whole Foods has talked about his psychedelic experience. A lot of people look. I myself on a microdosing protocol of LSD was able to write my book. I mean, my silly little kids book for adults on what microdosing is. So I used that for optimization. I didn't use it. And there's another thing that I really love to tell people, that a lot of people are using this as life performance enhancers. The same way the sports athletes use performance enhancers, right, to sort of be better, we can use these
Or
as life
or
performance
nootropics
enhancers.
for focus, you know, like
Exactly. So for me, it was this sense of, how can I through an ayahuasca experience in Colombia. And it was funny because I'm a big believer in what I talked about, that calling and that intention. For me, I could have sat with ayahuasca in Miami. I could have sat with ayahuasca here in Atlanta. But there was something, a part of the intention was I wanted to be in Colombia. And not only in Colombia, I wanted to be in the jungle of Colombia. Not only in the jungle of Colombia, I wanted to be with a taita alone and maybe a guide that took me down there. I don't want it to be in a retreat or in a maloca. I want to be in the jungle, like deep, like, you know what I mean? Like just like it was in the old days. and, and,
primal.
and and sure enough, everything happened. Everything fell into place. It did happen. It during the experience, there was a lot of sense of my roots, of being extracted from Colombia at a really young age to be planted in the U.S., where I really was able to grow, where I really was able to flourish. But now, what can I plant and what can I send back to Colombia? And there was this sense of there was this talk earlier, about looking for CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and bringing them, talk about optimization. And part of me was like, yeah, that's a great business plan. But part of me was like, Cesar, you're not a CEO or CFO or COO. What are you gonna? You can't relate to these people. And if you want to really bring something where it could make a difference, there has to be more people that are that's really related. And doing some market research, I came across people, CEOs, CFOs, who went to retreats and were like, yeah, I went, but there was a soccer mom and there was a veteran and there was someone who'd done ayahuasca 480 times and there was a backpacker and it was another CEO and there was another. There's no real strings to pull. And some retreats that I talked to were like, oh my God, we had this retreat that was just moms and it was amazing. We had this retreat that was just MMA fighters and it was amazing. We had this retreat that was just firemen and it was amazing. And I was like, well, who am I? I'm a dad. That's the proudest badge that I wear, is that of being a father of three incredible human beings. So what about if I bring dads together? Because dads, we have to put up this facade of protector, provider, of what I mean. I'm the one, and we're quick to share our wins and our victories and our mergers and our acquisitions and the new car we bought, and look at my Rolex and look at my shoes, and I'm sending my kid off to camp. But who do they share? Who do these dads share the things that break their heart, right? The things that keep them up at night. Who do they share this with? So the idea was, let's curate a retreat experience in Colombia, to go sit with the grandmother medicine, amongst 10 other dads, just 10 dads come together, and let's really create. Some of these guys are used to these boardrooms where they can't cry, or they can't be vulnerable, or they can't hug, or they can't sing. Well, we want to create this life boardroom where you can come, but you can still grow and you can still learn, and you can say, hey, you know what, I have my daughter and she's 16 and she's literally, I'm going to pull my hairs out, and I'm like, you know what, my daughter's 21. This is what I did. This is how I loved her. This is how I saw her, and was able to sort of change that relation or dynamic. Oh, I have a son that whatever, he doesn't even talk to me yet. Well, I wonder why. You just hand him Xboxes, or you sort of sitting down with him and saying, hey, bro, what's on your mind? So that type of situation, that type of learning, and at the same time, hopefully unpack things that we're still dealing with, which ayahuasca has shown in many occasions to be able to bring that out and create the best version of yourself. And at the same time, create a community of men, of dads, that we can know we can lean on each other, that we can be there for each other, that we can say, hey, my acquisition didn't go through. Yesterday, I was about to sort of, I don't know, I just need some love. We're here for you. That's, and it's needed for men. It's really needed. Look, we're towards the end of Mental Health Month. Father's Day just happened. You look at the rates of suicide amongst men and amongst dads, it's literally chilling. Like, it gives me goosebumps. So if somehow we can have one dad to that doesn't even become it becomes such an afterthought because he realizes that holy cow, I got everything I need, then we've done our job. So that's really the mission. That's the hope, and that's why I continues to talk about wear shirts that says microdosing, wear shirts that says much love, wear shirts that have mushrooms without it being tie-dye, trippy, psychedelic. So I don't give off that vibe. Just give off a vibe of your neighbor, your grandpa, your dad, who life has been changed through these molecules and who hopes that other people who have had the calling and are interested that I can be that bridge of information, maybe be that bridge of, hey, go here or try this, you know what I mean, or talk to this person. So it's a humble mission, but it's better than it's better than the machine at CNN. That's for sure.
Understandable. And I think, we've talked about this. I've talked about this when people interview me, especially because I became kind of a poster gal for men's mental health too, which I was shocked about, leading a lot of,
Mm,
you know, advocacy for, young people or female or those who identify as female and that kind of thing. And then what I noticed was that the men were still not given the space. They didn't have it in
mm,
their social circles. They didn't have it in their family
mm,
construct, that we're in modern times, but the actual culture boxes haven't evolved.
yeah,
So kind of like military and law enforcement that I had some stint with. I think to me the dad box is the man box, is the soldier box, is the fighter box, is the if I let down my armor, there's something wrong with me. If I have the benefit, and some people do and some people don't, of actually having a partner, whether that be heteronormative or whatever you're into, a partner that then is like someone that I can be all things with. Most people don't, not only don't have that, don't even know that that's a possibility for them.
yeah, yeah.
It certainly might not have started that way when they started that relationship 10, 20, 30, or 40 years ago with that person, because our society wasn't teaching us how to do that.
Mm, mm,
And so you've come through this arc, and I'm going to super, super oversimplify these phases of your hero's journey of, sort of like happy man, broken man, magic mushrooms,
yeah.
brand new life, what have you, right? But that you said something earlier about, you still have hard days. And so even with the tools and the things, you're still on this two-dimensional or three-dimensional or whatever we're going to call this reality that, you and I are talking through computers, having a conversation and having to accept Newtonian laws of physics, that we're not floating out of our chairs, and we have to sometimes brush our teeth, I would think, and do your taxes and all the things that you have to still do, even though you've been seen or shown, excuse me, an experiential existence that goes beyond that. So you have this, and I haven't done ayahuasca or a medical dose, and I'm pretty open about the fact of why and when and how that might
Yeah,
be at some point. That doesn't, and I advocate for them, but I've also had some brain stuff where I was told that might be dangerous.
yeah. Smart.
Every time I get up to the line, I'm like, oh, and one of the times was how we found out I had a little bubble. So it's actually a good thing.
Mm, yeah, definitely,
But,
definitely a good thing.
but just to say, I'm such an advocate because it was through the data of learning all of the stories and then looking into the ancient stories
Mm,
and
mm,
really looking at the transformative stories from men specifically, because it was for a lot of them the first time ever they felt that freedom to have that. So for
mhm,
females, a lot of times it was like, well, when I was pregnant, or when I gave birth, if that's a thing, or my girlfriends, looked in on me, so that we have these like created spaces for where you can, have doubts, have insecurity, be emotional, be erratic, be questioning your everything. And our culture code box shepherds us through that. and saying it's a literally a woman's prerogative to change her mind, right? But for men, the culture codes outside of whether you're a Latino, if you're Asian, if you're, African American, like whatever your culture box, there seems to be a universal thread among many that those walls are a little more rigid for y'all. And for y'all, yeah, now I'm Southern.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so you broke through, but then you still have to deal with the fact that there's all these little pieces of glitter dust like that when you broke through that wall, right? So
Mm.
you're like super connecting with all your kids, and then you find out one of them lies about something. I'm just making up an example.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or, something that just happens in life when you're like, I thought I was okay. Or you put in a pitch for a grant or some kind of thing, and everything falls down. Like anyone, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden now you're just skipping through rose fields and everything is all set. So how do
Mm.
you deal with, and what are some of the things now that kind of give you pause, and how do you handle them
Mm.
differently than you would have
Mm.
maybe 5, 10 years ago?
Yeah. So I'm a true believer that human beings have this emotional keyboard, right? Anger, happiness, fear, doubt, joy, sympathy, empathy, and we get to choose. We get to choose which keys we play, and we also get to choose how hard we play them, right? So life for me, when I got to 50, I realized there's 50 that way. There's not 50 this way. It's not. Let's be honest, right? So what does that mean? Is there two left? Is there 12 left? Is there 22 left? My mom's 83, so that means like if I have her genes, there could be potentially 30. So in that time, which keys am I going to play? How hard am I going to play them to give me balance, peace, and joy, which is what I want for the ones that are left. I don't want anger. I want fear. I don't want animosity. It doesn't serve me. So yes, my child, or I can find out that my child has lied about something, and I could be angry, and I could be mad, and I could be whatever, or I could be upset, and I could be disappointed, and I could be loving, and we can find some joy in how we resolve whatever the issue is. And I'm balanced. Maybe the Caesar before was going to go into that anger and that fear. Oh my God, what am I going to do? CNN, I lost my job. And now who's going to hire me? And now, or anything in life. Somebody cuts me off in the highway, almost hits my car. I have to sort of turn back. I don't hit the thing. And am I going to get angry at the guy? I'm going to be like, oh my goodness, thank God we didn't die.
No, that's the same. That's a funny thing. I use the same example recently about the way I drive is different. The way I perceive other people in space around me is different. And then I noticed that depending on how I react, the next scene, if you will, unfolds with a little more
Mm-hmm.
grace.
Take a deep breath and see what happens. Just take a deep breath and see
Do
which
you
way
have
you
a,
position.
a daily practice? It can be something, highly cerebral. It can be something really banal, but, something that maybe you've shared before, or maybe even that
Yeah,
you haven't, that keeps you kind of
yeah,
steady.
yeah. You know what I love to do? It's I, I, when you tell people, do you meditate? A lot of people say, I'm gonna give you two practices. One, that meditation, and people are, I don't have time to meditate. Okay, so let's think. There's 1,440 minutes in the day. All I'm asking for is 10 of those 1,400 for you to sit outside and go on your balcony. Tell yours, um, whoever, dad, uncle, whatever you're, I need 10 minutes to myself to go outside and just listen, and close your eyes and just listen to the birds, to the cars, to the airplanes, to whatever. Just be present in what's going on around you. That's a beautiful practice to realize that everything's happening right now. Those birds didn't sing yesterday. They might not sing tomorrow. That car didn't pass by yesterday. It's passing by today. So I think that that's a really good practice for oneself to be in the present moment. The other thing is this connection to people, right? We've somehow lost a bit of that. So I tell people, find the two people, the two most important people in your life, right? Father, son, kids, whatever. When is their birthday? So let's say their birthday is November 8th. So at 11:08 every day, you set an alarm, and every day at that time, you send them something, a note, an I love you, a smiley face, a thinking about you, an article because I know you love baseball, whatever it is. What you're doing is you're creating a safe connection with that person because that person now knows that at that time of the day, they can feel safe that you're going to reach out to them, which means that they can count on you at any time. I do it for my kids. For them, it's become this like, Dad's always there. You know what I mean? It's become a couple of minutes can pass by. My daughter's like, dude, you missed your shot. Better luck tomorrow. But it creates these connections. And I think that that's one of the things that we're really losing as this society, as this whatever we're going through is moving forward. It's like we've lost this connection to each other because we're literally texting the one across from us at the dinner table. What are you going to order? Seriously? So I think that if we can use this technology to at least connect in that loving way on a daily basis with those people who are really important to us, I think that one, it's a good moment for oneself to sort of send that love. It's a good way to, like I said, use technology in a positive way. Um, and like I tell people, look, I don't care if your child, if they pissed you off so bad because they crashed the car, when that alarm goes off, don't hesitate to tell them I love you, because if that person is that important, whatever that is, love is going to be so much more than anything else that you're feeling towards them.
I love that so much. I love that so much on so many levels. And I might want to throw something out. Two things. One is if
Mhm.
we build that into the app, I'll talk to you offline about what
Yeah.
that how I have to share
Oh,
that.
I love that. I would love that. Yes. Genius. Yes.
But also because it really works well with some of our other activities. But
Yes.
that, the way I might stretch it for those who are a little maybe feeling more isolated, right? So maybe they don't feel that they have someone who's on this earth right
Yeah.
now, or two
Yeah.
people, right? So
Yeah.
would you be open to me stretching this to say, what if it's just favorite people in your life, or
Yeah. Of
people that,
course.
or
Yeah.
people that you've become estranged from, and
Yeah.
maybe you don't have to even always send them the message
Mm.
in this
Mm.
physical way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
person, now you're my person, and I'm, at 11:11 because it's a great doorway opener, all these magical things.
Yeah.
Maybe, but or maybe not, or maybe you're traveling internationally and you told me, "Hey, I don't have that phone plan. Don't send me any texts on
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a week." So maybe at 11:11 when my alarm goes off, instead of sending you the message to you, I just think it. I just hold a 30 seconds of I'm sending some love.
Mm.
Could be somebody
Mm.
that you can do with someone who's
Yeah.
passed on, someone who you
Yeah.
might be estranged from that you feel might
Mm.
not receive
Mm.
you if
Mm.
in
Mm.
that, because of what psychedelics have been reportedly researched upon, and I can't help but going here a little bit. It's a little controversial in
Yeah.
terms
Yeah.
of, consciousness, my own personal death experiences, the fact that, I'm trying to understand what is consciousness and reality through
Mm.
things like you guys all telling me what happened. What happened?
Mhm.
But such that Einstein even told us about time not being necessarily as linear as we think. So if
Yeah.
we think that, if we even believe it or not, it doesn't matter, it still works, right? Which is one of the beauties of this. So whether you
Yeah.
believe this or not, if time is linear or not, when you send a loving thought through time space from yourself to someone else, whether you actually said, I love you, Cesar, on 11:11, or I just think with my full self, I love you, that
Mm.
you've actually still sent that love and that love is still received.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's what I feel like psychedelics can open us up to believe, so that we can start to repair some of those things without the maybe limits or excuses or what have you around what
Yeah.
might be in your physical world that might block you.
Mm.
So if you
Mm.
don't have a good relationship with your kids, build up, that you can build to it over time. And maybe you build it in your own mind first, or your
I
own, whatever
I
this
I
is.
I love that because it's actually really smart, right? Because it's sometimes those blockages, those lack of communications, those lack of connections come come from that, from not letting go. We're holding on to something, Or we're holding on to a grudge, we're holding on, or they're holding on to, and that's why maybe that's there. And it's that sense. And Isabel, my wife, talks a lot about it, about it's not so much about forgiving, it's about just letting it go. Because when you let it go, then it doesn't bother you anymore. And it's part of the alarms. And it's funny because I have these other three alarms that go off during the day. At 11:11, mine, what I do, my practice at 11:11 is I take 11 deep breaths, right? I take 11 deep breaths just to sort of regulate and say everything's okay. I have everything I need. At 1:11, I do what you were talking about at 11:11, which is send that love to someone at random, right? Sending it through voice notes so they can hear the sincerity in my voice. But I also love, like you said, you can still send it energetically. You can still send it because you're still getting the same positive vibration feeding out, whether you're doing it through your thoughts, whether you're doing it in person, whether you're doing it on a voicemail, whether you're doing it through a text. The sensation that you have of positivity, of sending that person that love, whoever that is, that's medicine for you, which is where it starts. And I'm
And
sure.
we're talking about it from a bit of a more woo way, but
Yeah, yeah.
neuroscience has measured this. So for those who like need this part, it's also chemical signaling is activated that is actually real and can be measured around Western science phenomenon
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
your blood pressure, your resting heart rate, your dopamine production, serotonin, even maybe your
Mm-hmm.
telomeres. So the more you actually can hold the frequency of having a loving thought is actually good for your health and cell
Yeah.
turnover. So it's like not just good for you, it's good for all around you, it's good for your physical body.
Keeps you vibing
And
right.
it's a win-win. But I love how simple it is. And now that I know what you're doing at 11:11, I'll be like, I'm just blowing one breath in there.
And this is what I tell people too. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be. It's not about being consistent. It's. I mean, it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent, right? It's about if I send out if I send out five voice notes a week, there could be someone. It's like, oh my god, I was thinking about you, or hey, you know what, I really needed that today, or it's just you just don't know, right? Those little positive things. Whether it's look, I tell people go into the supermarket, say good morning to everybody, just because. Just spread positive energy so that hopefully you get that back, right? We again, it's I'm sure if you've seen the shirt that we have in the apparel brand called the Collective Awakening, which is this huge mushroom, and it's for humans that are literally just holding hands. There's no phones, there's no nothing. Like that's what we need right now, to hold each other, like to really hold each other and love each other as human beings, so that we don't go through some of these trials and tribulations and things that we go through. Because like you said, there's a lot of loneliness. Like the loneliness epidemic in this country is really alarming. And it's really alarming, especially in that veteran community, and you know firsthand. You've talked to vets. My son's an active duty member. He's eventually one day going to be a veteran. um, they they need that more than ever. So even if that alarm, find someone who you know who's a vet, who's worn the uniform, who's been a first responder, whatever. Just send them thinking about you.
Well, I mean,
What's up?
there's a lot of data around the power of thought and intention. We could call
Mm-hmm.
it prayer, we could call it energy, we could call it love. So the yardstick for it is different depending on what rock I'm kidding, university you're
Yeah.
looking under, for how they define it. So I'm gonna make a generic cross-sectional term and just say intention, positive
Mm-hmm.
intention towards, right? But they've looked at this, even Mayo Clinic and sort of scaffolding organizations around, myself included. I honestly, 10 years ago, when people said thoughts and prayers, I would actually be like irritated with that a little bit. I'm like, yeah, that's going to help a lot. You know, it would actually almost be insulting to my way of thinking, on a
Mm-hmm.
decade.
I wonder. I
Um,
wonder to just time out. I wonder. I wonder how we would think if someone just said, "Hey, positive energy. I'm sending you positive energy," instead of thoughts and prayers. Right? Is that sort of like, would that how
Well,
would
but
that
even yeah, I
land?
was saying even 10 years ago, I would
Yeah.
think that's lovely, but that's not real.
Yeah.
Just being honest, my own
No.
bias
Yeah.
comes
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
from that Western. right? And so when I started learning and researching those things, through the organizations I wound up getting to work with and through my own, quite frankly, miracle experiences that I couldn't explain through medical technology, so, like I wanted answers. I was like, how did this happen? Why am I lucky? How is this miracle happening? And, and people saying, I prayed for you. I'm like, what does that even mean? Um, and then I learned
Yeah.
about it's been measured. These things have been
Mm.
measured. And so when a lot of people come together, whether they be military soldiers, whether they be children on a schoolyard, whether they be people in Bhutan, a
Hmm.
group of people with a shared focus and energetic direction, right? Of
Intention.
hugely positive, that people are clinically measured as having positive euphoria, even without a big discussion about it, just saying that they're holding that intention. But
Mm.
it's also been measured around why I was saying Mayo Clinic and those things. Cellular and disease healing and health has been measured by that differential of what was in the person's mind. Were they feeling, and were they open to? It blew my mind. That started
Mm.
me on a
Mm.
path, a decade
Hmm.
ago of like, wait, the placebo effect is real and it's bidirectional? So you can think it
Yeah.
for me? Wait,
Yeah.
what? And then, and starting to layer all of that Western science with the ancient wisdom.
Mm.
And I love the fact that they both kind of work. So it doesn't really matter to me if you're watching the front of the magic show and just appreciating the magic show, or you know how the tricks are done. Either way, you can enjoy the magic show.
Enjoy the magic show. Yeah, it's so true. That's
And
so
that's
true.
kind of how I feel about these things. But simplifying, I love that little tip. I love it. I really love it. Like I said, we'll
Yeah.
talk about the IP and the trademark. But how simple that can be and how it can work for people who don't necessarily have those immediate two people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a world we
Yeah.
struggle
That's
with,
the world we struggle with. You're right.
especially
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
said, in sort of more high profile and military communities where
Mm.
there haven't been decades of support for even that kind of approach, let alone practice.
Practice. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a sense of it's. I think that one thing that psychedelics really also helped me to do was to really learn how to be grateful, like truly grateful, like grateful in the sense that I'm not alone. Like that sometimes those things that were I'm all alone, this is just me, you know what I mean, and our thoughts start sort of wandering around. It's like wait, what are you even talking about? You have so much, so many people, you have so many good mushrooms that are connected to you. Like what are you even talking about? So again, you still go down that bit of that struggle, but then when you're awake and you realize, okay, I'm not going to sit in that emotion of despair because I'm grateful for what I have. And like you said, there are a lot of people that don't have that. There are a lot of people that don't have that one, two people that they can really lean on, that they can really count on, that they can know that they're going to be there for them. That's and again, that's why I'm a big believer that go out and say good morning to people, go out and connect to people, go out and send somebody a voice note. You know what I mean? It's again that human connection. I think is what's going to help us sort of moving forward because we are getting completely more disconnected on a daily basis, on a completely daily basis, and whether it's by intention, you know what I mean, that they want to whoever they are want to program us more and program our kids and but I think it's a real time for a lot of us who are awake like you are, like I am, to share these messages, to share this sense of, hey, there's a different way. There's science behind this, right? You don't have to live with the anger. You don't have to live with the depression.
And like us
You can
entering a
move
time
it.
of like we're on the cusp of being the village elders, right? And being okay
We
with
are.
that. And I think
Yeah.
you talked about really kind of facing your mortality as a way to face your life,
Mm.
your
I love that.
vitality via the
Yeah.
mortality. Because,
Yeah.
you said, how many years do I have? Then I'm like, is it 2? Is it 10? Maybe if I'm lucky, like my mom, it's 20 or 30. And that's a time where some people take that and shut down and start to feel like very aware of what they actually double down on being more sort of focused on the material and the extrinsic,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's scary and that's what you know. But
Yeah.
for the for those who are participating in the community of cultivating wisdom, what do you think keeps What do you think keeps folks engaging? As you're getting growing more and more and connecting with
Mm,
more people.
mm. I think it's a sense of, um, there's more conversations, and if in other words, if I look at my Google alerts, my Google News alerts, which on a daily basis I get for, psilocybin, psychedelics, ayahuasca, ibogaine, the fact that every day there's potentially more and more stories, which means these conversations are being had, which means publications are putting out these conversations to these people who again are the psychedelic curious, because it's sort of like the community of cultivating wisdom is like twofold, right? There's hopefully that community that supports in the sense of, hey, I'd love to wear a shirt so that I can show off and I can manifest the fact that I'm using these molecules responsibly with respect as a human performance enhancer, and I'm a better person, right? That's one fold. But then there's really also that psychedelic curious. In other words, microdosing over 50. Someone who knows about psychedelics might not be interested in taking a course that's part of microdosing over 50, but they might be interested in going to the summit within down in Colombia. So it's right now we're trying to build a community where it's all these bridges for people, whether you're curious or whether you're knowledge, that we can have honest, open, and objective conversations about psychedelics. I think that's what's mostly needed. Again, because again, through honesty, through openness, through objectivity, we get people off the fear or off the hype seesaw, and we plant them right in the middle, and we say, hey, you know what, I know you're interested, but if you're going to do this, you need to do this the right way, whatever the right way is,
Right.
whatever. But we're that bridge for you to ask the questions that you can't ask at home, that you can't ask at work, that you can't ask your neighbors, and we're going to give you honest conversations because of lived experience through other people or through mine. That's really the hope through this community, right? That we can share these conversations so that we don't have a situation where someone had a bad experience because they didn't know the difference between 50 milligrams and 5 grams. Oh, okay. So
Or
5 grams
even
is not a microdose.
themselves, like because of the
Yeah.
fact, and that is, it's a fair thing. And coming from a pharma background, I have mixed feelings about the regulations. I mean, really, truly, like I I respect that we need
Mm-hmm.
guidance and guidelines for things that we do, just like you would. I talk about it like fire or using a knife, right? Like there
Yeah.
are utilities and properties of tools that can be very beneficial and profoundly impactful, but there can be danger if they're not respected in the way that you need to. So, it's a little bit of a sticky widget there.
Yeah.
At the same
Yeah.
time, I think that, sometimes we don't act in our best interest, or sometimes our lies to ourselves. A lot of times we hear about men particularly having more bad trips or reporting a bad trip because of the fact that they put themselves in an environment that was incongruous to what would be best for them to experience and weren't aware of it,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they had not been honest with themselves about their issues that were already there that might have been not clinically diagnosed by anyone, whether they be latent issues with a depressive situation or even a bipolar or a schizophrenia or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
or a mania, or just quite frankly, a level of stress and time in their life where there might be a schism and something going on, such that then they just expect, like you said, a compound isn't on its own the doorway to this magical change. You are a participant with this physical body and mind and this whatever
Mm-hmm.
reality is,
Mm-hmm.
with these compounds together towards
Mm-hmm.
something. It's also not going to just, even the Alzheimer's and memory protocols for optimization, right? They're not just like take psilocybin and good luck. I'm like, you have to feed it. You have to
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
add
Yeah.
what the inputs are. Are you going to
Yeah.
try and read
Yeah.
or journal or even do a video game if it was designed for a brain game?
Yeah.
Meaning
Yeah.
that, it's not without its other things. And I think that's why people are looking to put protocols in place. But then I don't want to even get into the whole who's in charge of everything. I just mean at
I
the
think.
philosophical level of
Yeah.
where you sit in your community, that you're helping educate like the good, the bad, and the ugly, it feels like,
Mm,
and you don't
mm.
pretend.
Yeah, and I think again, it goes back to empowering people through education,
Hmm.
empowering people through the science that's out there. Because, In other words, if I think about it, right, where might potentially regulations be beneficial in the use of psychedelic medicine, right? Let's say, hey, they come up with some type of standard that works for people with eating disorders, or that works with people with a certain type of ailment, right? I think that instead of, hey, willy nilly, I wonder what happens, that's going to happen anyway, right? So it's sort of it's again, it's the seesaw, right? It's the seesaw of, big pharma. We need to do this right. If it's not in an opaque bottle with a white cap, I'm not going to take it. What's insurance going to cover? There's big money. There's lobbyists. And then on the other side, you have the underground, the people who grow their own mushrooms, the people who are like, hey, wait, let's just have a community and have conversations. The people who are holding space, the therapists who are trying to sort of, in one way, suggest to their patients, hey, there might be another way. Have you read about? So where are we going to stand without having the seesaw go completely one way, and dumping it, because it's, both of them are both ends of the spectrum are really ridiculous, right? Whether it's like, wait a minute, you mean I'm going to have to go to a doctor to get psilocybin and then go to the pharmacy when I can grow up my own, or the ridiculousness of like, what do you mean I'm going to go to jail because I grew something in my house that helps me open up my consciousness as I use it with intentions?
And maybe get off other medication.
Exactly. Maybe exactly. Make my life better than the living hell it is right
Yeah,
now
so
because of
that's where I
whatever.
think, the controversy in having places to explore this, especially in the mental health space, and it's very controversial, but people who have, quite frankly, in secret, but tried different treatment modalities,
Mm.
SSRI, other kinds of mental health medicines, I'll just call them by
Yeah.
pharmaceutical standards of what is medicine, and that they're feeling less connected with the world, even though they're piloting themselves through their day.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
it's and it's
I
it's
think
part. I
having a
think.
place to ask a question like, what does it feel like? What does it do? What am I going to be? Am I going to be a different person? Like, those are the things that I think, for whatever reason, and grown-ups are afraid to even say that they have that question, and you give a place for that.
Even as simple as, um, okay, so I hear people wanting to have these psychedelic experience and they talk about intentions. How do I set my intentions? That's a great question. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm going to set a laundry list. Show me how I become a millionaire. Show me. That's not how this works. What are your intentions? What comes up at night? What's keeping you up at night? What is the one thing? That's your intention, because that's literally what's going to happen when whatever molecule you're taking goes into that consciousness. That's potentially what's going to come. So it's little things, it's little conversations like that. Whether it's, look, when I'm going to go on an experience, this is how I set my intentions. People need that, and it's these conversations from someone that doesn't look like they just came back from Burning Man, someone that doesn't look like a clinical psychologist or a white coat guy who's going to tell you, someone who doesn't look like they just came back from a Grateful Dead concert. No, someone that looks like us, right? Someone that looks like you do, someone that looks like I do, because that's the people they can trust, right? That they can see us and go, wait a minute, hold on a
Unfortunately,
second.
yeah, like, I think
She's
the rapper is a boundary, but it makes us nice bridges. But,
mm,
um,
mm,
I'm I'm also I was like not sure if I wanted to say this because I didn't know if I wanted to talk about it for myself, but I think it's important because I thought it might be interesting for you. So, about that trip that a couple of colleagues that like Rick Doblin and some people, Paul Stamets and Pam and
the
all
Antarctic
the
one.
cool kids, the Antarctica trip, to test limits of consciousness, right, was part of it. Was a Wonder
Hmm.
Sciences curated trip with some of the folks who have been studying, at the highest forms of academia, to in the jungles, to, like, you name it, we had a
Yeah.
representative from there. Um, I don't know how I got so lucky to be among these folks, including an interesting person from your world, although not journalism ish, I guess, but, with, there was entertainers, there was Chelsea Handler there. And one of the things, because I was on the plane with her and we were met before, she said something like, why, you don't do the drugs? And I was like, well, what I read about and heard about from all of my friends and doing work in mental health compounds, it felt like psychedelic journeys were like a death experience in terms of what was seen and felt, and especially around this idea of looking back on your life with this observer role that still had the experiential knowledge, but this observer role into your own lens, but then the lens of all the people around you and what they saw and felt.
Mm,
Now, again, I don't know what's real or not real. It's not for me to say, but I'm just saying I had those experiences and I was struggling with how to sort it out and where to get that information. And it kept feeling like it was psychedelic journeying that felt closest to me, like death experiences and deep meditative experiences and vision things like in that way.
mm,
And how
mm,
do you, so, and then what do you do with it? What do you do with that
mm,
in your, when you're back, when you're ready to get to work, right? And so um I think it's also really interesting the way you don't have to sit in one discipline box, like this is mental health or this is, plant medicine. You know what I mean? Like, I think what's coming to the surface now is just even the concept of multimodal approaches to our composite body system, right? So if you're somebody who's had, because you brought up a protocol for an eating disorder, for example, regimen, right, with psychedelics, or they have ones for, quite frankly, gut issues. They've been studying psilocybin for resetting the gut biome, which we know
mhm,
then affects mood, then affects. So again, looking at us as a system of integrated consciousness and a body, which is not how the Western pharmaceutical looks at it.
no,
However, then there's acute things, right? Like if you, God forbid, someone got shot, we wouldn't say, okay, just pray and take mushrooms, but don't go to the hospital for that bullet wound. No, we're trying to
yeah,
say we're bringing together all the tools, just like sort of in times long ago, there were like medical doctors, and then there were apothecaries, and then there were
mhm,
wizards and shaman. And, we sort of said, like, what do you got in your bag of tools? What do you have
yeah,
in your bag
yeah,
of tools?
yeah,
And sort of finding those spaces. I think it speaks back to what you were saying about loneliness and culture too, because we're actually bringing in like world beliefs and culture beliefs that make us all have another link to one another, whether you come from, the jungles of Colombia or the top of the Himalayas, or, a, a, a a skyscraper in Singapore.
yeah,
That you can find those threads because you're like, oh, but we all, were little kids really excited about, seeing a bee, for the first time. And then when you realize that they can sting, and you know what I mean? Like we all had like that experience.
yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah, of
we've
course.
all had these other sort of unifier qualifiers. And, you know, I think that what you're doing is as simple as it sounds, as complicated as it is, which is normalizing the conversations, bringing the
Mm,
ancient into the modern, bringing people
mm,
out of their little boxes, and making,
mm.
looking good while you do it. Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, exactly, exactly. Because look, think about this, honey. Think about if we were having this conversation, and I was sitting here with like some Grateful Dead, some tie dye, not even Grateful Dead. I'm not gonna knock. I love the Grateful Dead. I'm not gonna knock the Grateful Dead, but some tie dye looking, or some Burning Man hat, or
It
you know what
would
I
just
mean.
signal that
Yeah,
to
people.
talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah, and look again. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's not. But I just think that right now psychedelics, alternative healing, need some
Makeover.
local mom and pop voices, right? They need people that look, oh, they look like me, they're just like me. Oh, wait a minute, he lost his job, I lost my job. Wait, he's been divorced, I've been divorced. His kids hardly call anymore, my kids hardly call anymore. He struggles with financing and whatever because he's an entrepreneur. That's me. Like, holy cow. He's struggling in a relationship. Wow, that's what we need. And how he's used these, look at where he was before, whatever, playing these keys, and now he's just like this, playing these keys because he's in touch and he's not intoxicated. He's just more alive. He's not escaping anymore. He's really embracing reality in the now. I think that when we show that, you know when we can, and the more mainstream talks about these conversations, the more people will get curious, and then they'll have to make their own decision. Then they'll have to make their own decision whether, hey, I want to do this legally. Okay, that means I'm going to have to go to Oregon. I'm going to have to go to Colorado. I'm going to have to go to Colombia. I'm going to have to go to Costa Rica. I'm going to have to go to Peru, whatever. Or, you know what? This is what I want to do. I'm going to find somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And, but at least we started the conversation. And you talked about like 10 years ago. We imagine having this conversation 10, 15 years ago. Like, what was it?
No, I remember,
Hey,
being nervous
hey, by
about,
the way, I did some mushrooms. And I was like,
yeah, like even
I
saying
was
I
like,
was going to, host the stage at Wonderland. And I was like, I don't know, people will think I'm advocating for drugs. They're like, what do you think you were doing in
no.
pharma? I was like, oh yeah.
You're just starting conversations. That's all we're doing. I'm
Right.
not.
So,
Yeah.
as we went a little over time, but it was all good.
Yay.
We could do that obviously pretty easily. Um, Anything you want to share about what's sort of what you're excited about in the next near term?
I'm so excited about the summit within. I'm really excited about getting that first group of dads down to Colombia. It's going to be a 5-day retreat. We're going to spend one day in Medellin in a wonderful, wonderful home. We're going to have a wonderful catered meal. We're going to do some breath work. Then we'll go about an hour away from Medellin in this luxurious, amazing place called La Guaira. We'll spend 4 days down there, really connect, really, sit with grandmother. I've always, for me, my ayahuasca experience was my grandmother was really upset at me. She had to have a really, really deep conversation with me, but afterwards she gave me a hug and she told me how much she loved me and how proud she was of everything I've done. And she sent me forward. So that's the type of experiences that we want to do. So I'm incredibly excited about that. I'm excited about also, microdosing over 50. The more people over 50 who are realizing, hey, I went to the doctor and he literally said, I don't know what you have, but take these. And if those don't work, take these. And if those don't work, take these. Like, I want another option. Like, tell me about this microdosing over 50. So excited about that, and excited to sort of see people wearing our apparel. The other day, I went to this Father's Day circle thing, and a woman was like, "Oh my God, I have one of your shirts. I didn't know that was you." Again, we start these conversations. That excites me. Right? That excites me. Seeing, look, whether you're a fan of the president of the United States or not, right? That aside, he signed an executive order to at least fast track some of this research for veterans. At least that's a conversation that starts talks, that starts veterans. And I know a lot of people are, yeah, but who's going to pocket all the money, or who is this really benefit? That's going to happen anyway. That's going to happen anyway. But the fact that it's being fast tracked, the fact that there's an executive order, the fact that these conversations can be had, the fact that a veteran can say, hey, wait a minute, hold on a second. I heard that there's a different thing beside these SSRIs and you guys are doing research. Can I be part of it? That's a win. That excites me. That type of stuff is really important. Look, all the new research that's coming out. The study with the Asian woman who had Alzheimer's, who through a psilocybin experience was able to get some of her functions back. That excites me. The studies that they're doing with DMT and stroke excites me. I'm not sure if you saw that study or not. They're taking rats, they're inducing them with strokes, and right away, a human has a stroke, you go to the ER, and they're sort of trying to figure out what to do. Well, these rats, they're injecting them with DMT, and part of the brain cells that have died are growing back. So they're like, wait a minute, hold on a second. So that type of stuff excites me because it takes the stigma off of psychedelics, which is really, that's the goal.
Yeah,
That's the
and
goal of it.
bringing it into the scientific conversation that we have already seen that these compounds in different ways have molecular responses that result in things that we can measure, like increased brain function,
Mm-hmm.
neuroplasticity, growing cells, other chemical signaling like dopamine, serotonin, other things that help you stay healthy, protect your cells. So, if we can find a safe and appropriate way for people to do that, and it has to be explored, just like surgery and penicillin and anesthesia were explored kind of brutally in the early days of medicine, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
familiar and we understood
Yeah.
what they could
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I think it's just sort of the new day for that, and putting a little bit more tools in the hands of the folks to
Mm-hmm.
calibrate, especially when we're talking about, how different we all are. But I thank you for all of this information, this conversation, and just, long overdue, but always wonderful to be
Definitely.
in your presence.
It's always we'll do. I'm sure we'll do a second part. I'm sure
Oh
there's going to be things to talk about. Wonderland. There's going to be a new Wonderland coming up.
yeah.
Psychedelic science is coming up. There's a lot of really cool things that are happening. I do want to thank everyone who's sat in and listened through the whole thing, or whether they're watching the whole thing. I'm going to put together a little discount code at Cultivating Wisdom. We're going to do TNE 20. We'll get 20% discount to
Woo!
anybody that wants to buy some apparel, show off that they're microdosing, spread some love, show that they're part of the collective awakening. It's again, it's starting this conversation. It's finding our people. It's finding the people that are curious and saying, hey, come here. It's not all the hype. It's not all the fear, but I'm going to have this conversation because this is what the science is showing us. Those are important conversations to have right now because there's a lot of curiosity. And I just hope that through cultivating wisdom amongst each others, that we're able to make sure people are exploring their consciousness the right way with respect,
So much.
with safety. Yeah.
With respect and with safety, exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
thank
Mm-hmm.
you so, and like I said, and look good doing it. And
So I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to leave you
yeah,
with this so you can do your closing. I tell everybody today's the best day of my life because yesterday's not really a day. Yesterday's a memory. I can't relive. I can't redo anything. Tomorrow, I'm not even sure tomorrow. So today is the best day of my life. Natasha, thank you for being part of the best day of my life. Whoever's listening to us, thank you for being part of the best day of my life. Go out there and spread much love.
thank you so much. Thank you, Cesar.